The rain hammered down on the old pickup truck like fists on sheet metal, each drop a reminder of the storm brewing inside. Lawson Harper gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened, the wipers slashing back and forth in futile rhythm against the downpour blurring the road ahead. He hadn't seen Harlan in 15 years. Not since that night in the barn when his brother's boot cracked against his ribs and the world shattered into shards of betrayal and blood. But now, here he was, pulling up to the sagging ranch house in Ridge Valley, Texas, the kind of place where secrets festered under wide-open skies. The porch light flickered like a dying heartbeat, and there, silhouetted against it, stood Harlan. Broader now, shoulders hunched under the weight of something heavier than regret. Lawson killed the engine, the sudden silence roaring louder than the thunder. He stepped out into the mud, boots sinking into the earth that had once felt like home, and wondered if forgiveness was just another word for surrender. Harlan didn't move at first, just stared from the shadows, his face a map of lines carved by time and poor choices. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked like dry timber. "Lawson, you came." It wasn't a question, but the plea hung there, raw and exposed, pulling Lawson forward despite the ache in his chest that whispered to turn back. Lawson crossed the yard in 3 long strides, the rain soaking through his jacket. Mingling with the sweat of a cross-country flight, he regretted booking the moment he hung up the phone. Harlan's call had come out of nowhere 2 days ago, a halting voicemail left at dawn. "It's me. I need you. The boy's alone and I can't do this without you." The boy, Harlan's son, Theo, barely 4 years old, orphaned in the span of a single, senseless car wreck that took his mother and left Harlan clinging to life in a hospital bed, head checked out of too soon. Inside, the house smelled of stale coffee and regret, the living room cluttered with unopened sympathy cards and a scattering of Theo's toys. A plastic sheriff badge glinting under the lamp like false hope. Harlan led him to the kitchen, where a high chair sat empty, its tray smeared with the ghosts of uneaten meals. "He's with the neighbor," Harlan muttered, collapsing into a chair that creaked under him. His eyes, the same stormy gray as Lawson's own, darted away, unable to hold the gaze head once used to break him. Lawson leaned against the counter, arms crossed like a shield. "Why me, Harlan? After everything?" The words tasted bitter, laced with the memory of that summer night in 2009, when Lawson was 17 and Harlan 22, fresh from a tour in Iraq that had turned their golden boy into something jagged and unforgiving. Lawson had confessed his secret in whispers to the stars above the cornfields, but Harlan had overheard, and what followed was a frenzy of rage. Fists and shouts and the crack of bone that sent Lawson fleeing to Seattle with nothing but a duffel bag and a bus ticket. Harlan rubbed his face, the scar on his knuckles, a remnant from that fight, catching the light. "Because you're family, and because, God, Lawson, I know what I did. I've carried it every damn day." He paused, voice dropping to a rasp. "Maggie's gone. The truck's totaled. Doctors say the crash scrambled something in my head. Concussion complications, they call it. Blackouts. Rages. I can't be trusted with him. Social services is circling like vultures. You're steady. You got your life together up there in the city." Lawson laughed, a short, hollow sound that echoed off the yellowed wallpaper. "Steady. That was a joke." In Seattle, he bartended at a dive called The Anchor, slinging IPAs to hipsters and hiding his own cracks behind easy smiles and late-night hookups that never quite filled the void. Head built a life, sure. Friends who knew his story without pity. A tiny apartment overlooking the Sound where he painted abstracts in furious strokes when the memories clawed too close. But steady? That was a lie he told himself on bad days. "Tell me about Theo," Lawson said finally, sidestepping the minefield of their past. Harlan pulled out his wallet, fumbling for a photo. A towhead kid with Harlan's jaw and Maggie's dimples, grinning gap-toothed from atop a hay bale. "He's a firecracker. Loves trucks, hates baths. Calls me Daddy Bear." Harlan's voice softened, the first real crack in his armor, and Lawson felt it tug at something deep, a thread of brotherhood he thought heads severed long ago. They talked until the rain eased to a drizzle, Harlan spinning tales of fatherhood that painted him as the hero had never been to Lawson. But beneath the words, the undercurrent pulled strong. The unspoken plea for redemption, for Lawson to step in where blood demanded it. By midnight, With Theo tucked in the next room under Mrs. Garcia's watchful eye, Harlan poured them whiskeys from a bottle older than their grudge. "Stay," he said, glass trembling in his hand. "Just till I get my head straight." For him. Lawson stared into the amber liquid, seeing flashes of that barn. The hayloft where Harlan had cornered him, breath hot with beer and fury. "You're a goddamn abomination, Lawson." Dad would roll in his grave. The blows had landed like judgments, each one stripping away the boy Lawson had been, leaving a man who learned to love in shadows, to trust with conditions. Yet here was Harlan broken open, offering a child as collateral for a truce. "I'll think about it," Lawson replied, setting the glass down untouched. But as he lay on the lumpy couch that night, listening to the house settle like a weary animal, he knew he'd already decided. Not for Harlan, for the boy with the sheriff badge, who deserved better than echoes of their father's sins. Dawn broke over Ridge Valley with a deceptive gentleness, the sun gilding the barbed wire fences that hemmed in the Harper Acres. Lawson woke to the sound of small feet pattering across the floorboards, and before he could sit up, Theo barreled into view, a whirlwind of blonde curls and overalls, clutching a stuffed bear that had seen better days. "Uncle Lawson?" The word hung tentative like he'd rehearsed it in the mirror. Harlan's neighbor had prepped him the night before, spinning Lawson into some mythical savior rather than the ghost of Christmases past. Theo climbed onto the couch, wedging his way under Lawson's arm with the unerring instinct of the very young. "Daddy said you fix trucks. Mine broke." Lawson blinked, the warmth of the boy's body seeping through his defenses like sunlight through cracks. He ruffled Theo's hair, the gesture automatic, pulling a giggle that lit the dim room. "Did he now? Let's see what we can do about that." Breakfast was a chaotic affair. Cereal bowls overflowing with frosted flakes, Harlan shuffling in with bedhead and a forced grin, trying too hard to play the normal family man. Lawson watched from across the table, noting the tremor in his brother's hand as he poured milk, the way his eyes glazed for a split second when Theo knocked over his spoon. The crash had stolen more than Maggie. It had unearthed the demons Harlan had buried under ranch work and routine. After, they headed to the barn, the same one that loomed in Lawson's nightmares like a sentinel of shame. Theo scampered ahead, oblivious, while Harlan hung back, clearing his throat. "I was wrong, Lawson. About you. About everything. Iraq. Twisted me. Made me see threats where there weren't none. You were just a kid, figuring yourself out, and I. Save it." Lawson cut in, sharper than intended. The air thickened, heavy with the scent of aged wood and motor oil. He knelt by Theo's toy truck, a red Tonka Arla Zonk with a busted axle, and fished a pocket knife from his jeans. "Fix this first. Words later." Theo chattered nonstop as Lawson tinkered, his small hands mimicking every twist of the screwdriver. "Mommy used to sing when Daddy fixed the real ones. Like this." He launched into a mangled rendition of "You Are My Sunshine," voice piping high and off-key, and Lawson felt his throat tighten. Maggie. He'd met her once, at a family barbecue before the world imploded, vibrant, with laugh lines that promised she could tame Harlan's storms. Gone now, in a skid on black ice, leaving this fragment of joy in her wake. Harlan leaned against a post, arms folded, but his gaze softened watching them. For a moment, the years peeled back, and Lawson glimpsed the brother who'd taught him to ride a bike, to skip stones across Willow Creek. But then Theo asked, innocent as a summer breeze, "Why don't you live here anymore, Uncle Lawson?" "Daddy says you went to find stars." The barn went still. Harlan's face paled, and Lawson forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Stars are brighter in the city, kiddo. But they're everywhere if you look hard enough." He handed over the repaired truck, and Theo whooped, zooming it across the dirt floor in triumphant laps. That afternoon brought the first real fracture. Social services arrived unannounced. A brisk woman named Carla with a clipboard and eyes that missed nothing. She interviewed Harlan in the kitchen, voice muffled through the walls, while Lawson kept Theo occupied outside with chalk drawings on the driveway, dragons and fire trucks bleeding into rain puddles. "Mr. Harper shows signs of instability," Carla said later, pulling Lawson aside on the porch. "Post-traumatic episodes, potential for relapse. The child's welfare." She trailed off, glancing at Theo chasing fireflies in the yard. We need a stable guardian. Family, if possible. Lawson nodded, the weight settling like lead in his gut. Stable. The word mocked him. Back in Seattle, his life was a patchwork. Nights blurring into mornings with men whose names he forgot by checkout. Canvases stacked against walls screaming emotions he couldn't voice. But here, with Theos' laughter cutting through the dusk, something stirred. A fierce, unfamiliar protectiveness. Harlan emerged then, defeated, clutching a stack of forms. They want me to sign over temporary custody. To you. His voice broke on the last word, and for the first time, Lawson saw not the monster of memory, but a man drowning in his own wreckage. Fine, Lawson said, the word escaping before he could cage it. But this isn't forgiveness, Harlan. It's for him. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in bruised purples, Lawson loaded Theo into the truck for a drive to clear his head. The boy babbled about superheroes and ice cream flavors, his tiny hands slipping into Lawson's on the gearshift. In that moment, with the radio humming a soft country ballad, Lawson felt the first tentative thaw. A bridge forming over the chasm of years, built not on blood, but on the fragile hope of what could be mended. The days blurred into a rhythm both alien and achingly familiar, Ridge Valley wrapping around Lawson like an old coat that no longer fit quite right. Morning started with Theo's insistent, "Uncle Lawson, pancakes," dragging him to the stove where batter sizzled and syrup stuck to everything. Harlan kept his distance at first, haunting the edges of their makeshift family. Fixing fences by dawn, collapsing into silence by dusk, his blackouts coming in waves that left him staring at walls as if reading invisible indictments. Lawson adapted with the quiet efficiency head honed in Seattle's relentless drizzle. He called his boss at the Anchor, spinning a tale of family emergency that bought him 2 weeks, then 3. Nights, when Theo finally crashed in a tangle of limbs and bare, Lawson sat on the porch with a sketchpad, charcoal smudging his fingers as he captured the boy's sleeping face. Innocent lines that echoed Harlan's own at that age, before the world hardened him. One evening, as cicadas hummed their electric chorus, Harlan joined him, 2 beers sweating on the railing. "You always drew like that," he said, nodding at the page. "Even as a kid. Dad called it sissy shit." The admission landed soft, an olive branch wrapped in thorns. Lawson closed the pad, the beer cold against his palm. Dad called a lot of things wrong. Their father, gone a decade now to cancer, had ruled the Harper roost with a Bible in one hand and a belt in the other. Love doled out in measures, always conditional. Head died praising Harlan's service, ignoring Lawson's art school dreams as frivolous whims. Harlan took a long pull, Adam's apple bobbing. "I bought into it, the whole macho code. Thought it made me strong." He laughed, bitter and low. "Look at me now. Can't even keep my own kids safe." The confession cracked something in Lawson, a fissure widening to let in the light of understanding. Harlan wasn't excusing the past. He was excavating it, bone by bone. "The night I hit you, I wasn't mad at you being gay, Lawson. I was scared. Scared I'd turn out like Uncle Ray, the one Dad disowned for the same reason. Thought if I beat it out of you, I'd save us both." Lawson turned, meeting his brother's eyes for the first time without armor. "You didn't save shit. You broke me." The words hung, heavy but honest, and in their wake came the flood. The story Lawson had never told of the Seattle years. The first tentative kiss in a coffee shop bathroom, tasting of fear and freedom. The lover who left when Lawson's walls stayed too high. The therapy sessions where he learned to name the scar tissue around his heart. Harlan listened, unmoving, tears carving clean tracks down dust-streaked cheeks. When Lawson finished, the silence stretched, broken only by a coyote's distant howl. "I'm sorry," Harlan whispered finally, the words a dam breaking. "For all of it." Forgiveness didn't come in a rush, but in that shared vulnerability, Lawson felt its roots take hold, tentative, thorny, but alive. The idol shattered on a Thursday, heat wave pressing down like a judgment. Lawson had taken Theo to the county fair. Cotton candy melting on chins, Ferris wheel cars swaying against a sky bruised with thunderheads. The boy rode the pony track 3 times, waving like royalty, while Lawson snapped photos on his phone, the clicks a metronome to his swelling joy. Back home, they found Harlan in the barn, tools scattered like aftermath, his truck idling with the passenger door ajar. Went for a drive, he slurred when Lawson confronted him, breath reeking of bourbon swiped from the cabinet. Needed to think. Theo shrank behind Lawson's legs, eyes wide. Daddy okay? He's fine, Lawson mouthed to the boy, scooping him up as Harlan stumbled forward, face twisting into something feral. You think you can waltz in here, play house? You're still that faggot kid, Lawson. Taking my boy like you took everything else. The slur landed like a backhand, propelling Lawson back 15 years. Theo whimpered, burying his face in Lawson's neck, and rage surged hot and immediate. Get out, Lawson growled, voice low thunder. Sober up or sleep in the ditch. But you don't talk to me like that. Not in front of him. Harlan lunged, fist half raised, but the blackout hit. A glassy stare, body slumping against the workbench. Lawson caught him before he fell, muscle memory from their wrestling days. Theo's sobs the soundtrack to the chaos. He half-carried, half-dragged Harlan inside, depositing him on the couch where he muttered incoherently about sand dunes and incoming fire, ghosts from Iraq bleeding into the present. That night, with Theo asleep and Harlan snoring off the bender, Lawson packed a bag. Not his own, they'd leave at first light, him and the boy, back to Seattle where stability wasn't a myth. But as he zipped the duffel, doubt gnawed. Was running the answer, or just another scar in the making? Morning brought clarity in the form of Carla's follow-up call. Mr. Harper's relapsed. We need to move fast. Temporary foster if you can't commit. Lawson glanced at Theo coloring at the table, crayons clutched like liflazones. Then at Harlan stirring on the couch, eyes bloodshot but clear. I'll commit, Lawson said, the vow sealing something irrevocable. But on my terms. The confrontation came mid-morning, sun slanting through kitchen windows like spotlights on a stage set for reckoning. Harlan woke to coffee and accusation, Lawson sliding the custody papers across the table. Sign them. Full guardianship. You get help, therapy, AA, whatever it takes. Or I walk with him today. Harlan stared at the ink, hands shaking. You'd take him from me? You took everything from me once. Lawson's voice held steady, laced with the steel of survival. This is redemption, Harlan. Earn it. Theo wandered in then, oblivious, clambering onto Harlan's lap. Draw with me, Daddy. The simple request undid him. Tears splashing onto the page as he scrawled a lopsided truck, Theo giggling at the mess. Lawson watched, heart twisting, as brother and nephew bonded in crayon chaos. Harlan signed by noon, the pen scratching like a confession. I love him, he said after, voice raw. And you're the better man, Lawson. Always were. The words landed soft, a balm on old wounds. Lawson pulled him into a hug, awkward, bone-crushing, the first in decades. Get better. For both of us. They left 2 days later, Lawson and Theo in the rental car pointed north, Harlan waving from the porch with promises of weekly calls and visits. The drive stretched long, playlists shuffling from children's tunes to Lawson's indie folk, Theo's head nodding against his shoulder by Oklahoma. Seattle greeted them with fog-kissed harbors and the familiar tang of salt, Lawson's apartment transforming overnight into a nursery of sorts, crib borrowed from a friend, walls splashed with murals of starry skies. Theo adapted with toddler resilience, calling the Space Needle Uncle Lawson's tower, and charming the barflies at the anchor with fist bumps on pickup nights. But the romance of reunion bloomed unexpected, in the form of Miles, a regular at the bar, quiet graphic designer with ink-stained fingers and eyes like smoked quartz. Head lingered after closing one rainy Tuesday, offering to help lug cases, their shoulders brushing in the narrow stockroom. Heard about your nephew, Miles said later, over shared fries at a diner. Sounds heavy. Lawson shrugged, tracing patterns in ketchup. He's a light in the dark. And in Miles's steady gaze, Lawson found himself opening, stories of Ridge Valley spilling out alongside Theos' latest antics. Their first kiss happened on a pier much like the one in the prompt that started this tale, waves lapping below as Theo napped in his stroller. Miles cupped Lawson's face, thumb brushing stubble, and whispered, You're not alone in this. The kiss deepened, salt and longing, a promise of tenderness Lawson had long denied himself. Back home, with Theo tucked in and Miles lingering for a nightcap that stretched to dawn. Lawson traced the tattoos snaking up his lover's arm. Anchors and compasses, maps to uncharted hearts. They made love slow and de la Zonbarate, bodies learning each other in the quiet hours, Miles's breath hitching on Lawson's name like a prayer. Yet doubt shadowed the bliss. Letters from Harlan arrived weekly, scrawled updates on therapy sessions, sobriety chips earned like battle medals. Missed the little guy. Tell him Daddy Bear's fighting dragons. Lawson read them aloud to Theo, who beamed and added stickers to the envelopes in reply. The high tide of happiness crested in summer, a road trip south to test the waters of reconciliation. They drove in convoy, Lawson's truck with Miles' shotgun, Theo strapped in back, Harlan meeting them halfway in Austin for barbecue and uneasy truce. The brothers circled each other at first, words clipped, but Theo's glee bridged the gap, tossing a frisbee with Harlan under live oaks, Miles sketching the scene from afar. That night, around a motel fire pit, Harlan pulled Lawson aside. He's happy. You did that. His eyes flicked to Miles, appraising. Brought someone good into it too. Lawson nodded, throat tight. Learned from the best and the worst. They clinked bottles, the gesture sealing a fragile peace. But storms brew unseen, and betrayal slithered in on autumn winds. Harlan's letters grew erratic, boasts of a new job, then silence. When Lawson called, a woman's voice answered, "He's resting. Who is this?" The pieces fell into place over frantic voicemails. Harlan, spiraling after a promotion soured, had fallen off the wagon, shacked up with a coworker named Kendra who whispered poisons about that city boy stealing my kid. She fed Harlan's insecurities until they festered into action. A petition filed in county court, claiming Lawson unfit, citing his lifestyle as endangerment. The call came on a Tuesday, Carla's tone clipped. He's challenging the guardianship. Alleges instability on your end. Mentions a boyfriend, bar work. We need you here. Lawson hung up, world tilting. Miles finding him slumped on the kitchen floor. Hell pay for this? Miles growled. But Lawson shook his head, fury coiling cold. No, he's scared. Again. The trial loomed like a thunderhead. Ridge Valley Courthouse, a Arlazonk of wood and judgment. Lawson flew solo. Theo boarded with Miles's sister. The separation a knife twist. Harlan sat across the aisle, Kendra on his arm, her glare venomous. But when the judge called order, Harlan's eyes met Lawson's. Haunted, hollow, the fire of relapse dimmed to ash. Testimonies dragged. Carla vouching for Lawson's care. A Seattle therapist detailing Harlan's volatility. Kendra spun tales of Lawson's deviant influence. Her voice shrill, but Harlan stayed silent until his turn. He took the stand, oaths sworn on a Bible he clutched like a shield. I ain't fit, he said, voice steady despite the tremor. Not yet, but I want my boy back. Someday. Lawson. He's given Theo what I couldn't. Love without strings. He turned then, facing his brother fully. I lied in the filing. Kendra pushed it, said it was strategy. But truth is, I was jealous. Of your life. Your strength. The courtroom hushed. Kendra hissing protests. But Harlan pressed on. Years ago, I beat him for being who he is. Gay straight don't matter. I beat him for being honest when I was coward. Now I'm asking the court, and you, Lawson, to let me earn my way back. Not take. Give. Tears streaked his face, mirroring Lawson's own. The judge, a weathered woman with kind eyes, delazonberated brief. Guardianship upheld, with supervised visits for Harlan, therapy mandated. Outside, rain slicked the steps, Harlan approaching tentative. Thank you for not fighting dirty. Lawson pulled him close, embrace fierce. We're Harpers. We fight smart, and we forgive eventually. Kendra slunk away, discarded, as brothers stood in the downpour, washing clean the years. Winter settled soft on Seattle, snow dusting the sound like forgotten promises. Theo turned 5 in a whirlwind of cake and balloons, Miles proposing midway through with a ring tucked in a toy truck. Lawson yes whispered amid laughter and lights. Harlan arrived by train, sober 6 months, bearing a wooden sheriff badge carved by hand. He watched from the edges, content in the margins, his redemption a quiet work in progress. Lawson, painting by the window one eve, captured it all. Theo and Miles building forts, Harlan reading bedtime tales with voices that cracked just right. The canvas bloomed in hues of gold and gray, family, fractured and fierce, stitched by threads of grace. In the end, it wasn't perfection they found, but presence, the raw, human dance of loving through the breaks. Lawson learned that scars, like stars, guide if you let them. Harlan, that strength lies in surrender. Theo, that home is where the heart mends, one hug at a time. And in the quiet nights, with Miles's arm across his chest and Theos snores from the next room, Lawson breathed easy, the past a shadow yielding to dawn.